San Francisco, early 1970s. Not the polished arenas with bright television lights and paid commentators speaking into microphones. This was different. The gym sat above a hardware store on a narrow street that smelled of oil and sea air. You reached it by climbing a wooden staircase that groaned under heavy footsteps. Inside, the ceiling hung low. Fluorescent lights flickered. Leather gloves lay scattered on a cracked wooden bench. Sweat had soaked into the canvas ring so deeply that no amount of scrubbing could remove the scent of old fights. Men stood along the ropes, arms folded, jackets off, shirts damp at the collar. Some had money folded into their pockets. Some had pride. Most had both. A heavy bag swung in the far corner, untouched, still moving slightly from a previous round. The sound of it creaking against its chain echoed softly through the room. Tonight wasn't a sanctioned match. No referee in uniform, no official record, no newspaper coverage, just a challenge. And challenges had a way of spreading quickly. At the center of the ring stood a man who looked as if he had been carved from industrial steel. 6'4", 240 pounds, shoulders like concrete blocks. His forearms were thick enough to make standard gloves look undersized. His name was Frank Malone, former Golden Gloves competitor. 23 knockouts in 30 fights. He believed in simple things: mass, impact, endings. When he punched, people didn't block. They absorbed, and absorption came at a cost. He had broken ribs in Oakland, shattered a nose in Los Angeles. Once, in a smoker bout in Sacramento, he had knocked a man out so cleanly that the crowd went silent before they realized what had happened. Frank liked that silence. It meant authority. He leaned against the ropes now, rolling his shoulders, stretching his neck from side to side. Every movement looked heavy, confident, permanent. Across the room, near the edge of the ring, stood someone who did not look permanent at all. He was smaller, lean, compact, no thick chest, no bulging arms, just lines. Sharp, controlled, black training pants, simple shirt, hands relaxed at his sides. He wasn't warming up. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't trying to look intimidating. He was watching. The crowd noticed him the way people notice something that doesn't fit. A few whispers passed between the men near the ropes. That's him. The Kung Fu guy. The movie actor. Frank followed their gaze. He squinted slightly. Then he laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter. It was dismissive, the kind a grown man gives when a child asks to lift his weight. He stepped forward, resting his forearms over the top rope. You serious? Frank's voice filled the room without effort. This the guy? Someone nodded. Frank looked Bruce up and down, slowly, like a man evaluating something too small to threaten him. You're too small to fight, he said plainly. No theatrics, no shouting, just certainty. A few men in the back laughed, not cruelly, just automatically. Bruce didn't react. Frank continued. This isn't a movie set. No cameras here. No second takes. More laughter. Bruce's expression didn't change. He stepped closer to the ring. Frank pushed himself off the ropes and dropped down to the canvas with a heavy thud. The impact echoed. You ever been hit by someone your size? Frank asked. Bruce tilted his head slightly. I have, he said calmly. The answer wasn't defensive. It wasn't aggressive. It was observational. Frank smirked. I outweigh you by at least 80 pounds. Bruce nodded once. Mass is a factor, he said, but not the only one. The room quieted slightly. Frank cracked his knuckles. You think speed beats power? Bruce looked at him carefully. I think timing beats both. That drew a few murmurs. Frank stepped closer now. Close enough that the difference in size was undeniable. Frank's chest nearly blocked the overhead light. Bruce stood directly in front of him, smaller, but not retreating. You know what happens, Frank said quietly, when a small guy steps in with someone like me. Bruce met his eyes. Yes. And? He learns. A pause. Frank's jaw tightened. The laughter had faded now. Something had shifted. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was curiosity. Someone near the corner called out, "Let them spar." Another voice followed, "Just a round." No bell rang. No referee stepped in. Frank rolled his shoulders once more. Bruce stepped between the ropes without rushing. The canvas dipped slightly under Frank's weight. It barely moved under Bruce's. Frank raised his gloves. Bruce didn't. His hands remained open, relaxed. Frank frowned. "You're not even going to guard?" Bruce's stance adjusted subtly. Left foot angled, weight centered. "I am," he replied. The room grew still. Frank took one step forward, then another, each step deliberate, measured. The distance between them closed. Frank wasn't laughing anymore, and for the first time that night, neither was anyone else. Frank set his feet. His shoulders rolled forward, his fist tightened. The air in the gym felt heavier. Bruce's eyes didn't blink. Frank drew his right arm back, and this time he wasn't joking. Frank's right hand came forward like a thrown brick. Not fast by featherweight standards, but heavy. Heavy enough that the air seemed to split around it. It was a testing jab. Not full power, not yet. Bruce didn't retreat. He shifted, 4 inches, not backward, angled. Frank's glove passed where Bruce's face had been. The crowd reacted, a low murmur, almost confused. Frank reset immediately. Second punch. This one wasn't testing. A straight cross driven from the hip, shoulder rotating, weight transferring like a freight train leaving the station. Bruce pivoted, a small turn on the ball of his lead foot. The punch missed again, but this time Frank's momentum carried him slightly forward. Not enough to fall, just enough to overcommit. Bruce's hand moved, not a full strike. A light touch to Frank's lead wrist, a reminder. Frank pulled back. And his brow tightened. He hadn't expected 2 clean misses. He circled now, testing angles. Bruce mirrored him with movements that didn't resemble traditional boxing. His stance wasn't square, wasn't bladed, it flowed. Weight never fully committed to one leg. Balanced, ready. Frank exhaled sharply through his nose. Then he attacked in combination. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The kind of sequence that had folded men his size. The jab sliced forward. Bruce slipped inside it. The cross followed. Bruce stepped offline. The hook came heavy and low. Bruce's forearm intercepted, redirecting it just enough to remove power. No dramatic blocks, no loud impacts, just absence. Frank increased speed. His gloves cut through the air in thick arcs. Oh, body shots now. He aimed for the ribs. If he couldn't catch the head, he would break the frame. A right to the body. Bruce dropped his elbow just in time. A thud echoed. Impact absorbed, not avoided. Frank grinned. "You felt that." Bruce stepped back once. A small retreat. The crowd roared. There it was. Proof of mass. Frank pressed forward, confidence returning. He threw a heavy overhand. Bruce ducked under it and responded, not with a hook, not with a cross. A straight lead. Short, explosive. It traveled no more than 6 inches, but it landed just beneath Frank's sternum. A sharp exhale escaped the big man's lungs. Not pain, surprise. Bruce stepped out again. Frank shook his head. "You hit like that?" he charged. No more measured pacing. Now it was aggression. 3 punches in a row, wild but powerful. The first brushed Bruce's shoulder. The second grazed his jaw. The third missed entirely. Bruce's feet adjusted constantly. He wasn't backing straight up. He was drawing circles, creating angles. Frank's breathing began to shift. Subtle at first, then more noticeable. Bruce saw it. His eyes tracked the rise and fall of Frank's chest. He stepped in. Finger jab, not fully extended, just close enough to force a blink. Frank flinched instinctively, and in that fraction of a second, Bruce's left foot snapped forward. Low oblique kick. Not to injure, to disrupt. It struck the front of Frank's knee. Frank's stance faltered, just slightly, but enough. Oh, Bruce moved inside the pocket. Too close for wide hooks, too tight for heavy swings. Frank tried to clinch, wrap his arms around him, crush him with weight. Bruce's forearms slid upward, wedging inside Frank's guard, centerline occupied. He delivered 2 short punches, one to the ribs, one to the solar plexus. Compact, efficient. Frank grunted, this time louder. He shoved Bruce backward with sheer size. Bruce allowed it, didn't resist, reset. Frank wiped sweat from his brow. His eyes were different now. No more amusement, only calculation. You're quick, he muttered. Bruce didn't answer. Frank circled again. Then suddenly, he feinted low and launched a right hook with full rotation. This was the punch, the one that ended fights. The glove cut through the air with frightening speed. Bruce didn't duck, didn't retreat. He stepped inside it. Intercepted. His forearm jammed against Frank's bicep before the hook could arc fully. At the same time, his right hand shot forward, straight, precise, landing flush on Frank's jaw. The sound wasn't dramatic. Not like in movies. It was sharp, clean. Frank stumbled back one full step. The gym fell silent. No laughter, no murmurs, just breathing. Frank blinked twice. He hadn't fallen. But something had changed. He touched his jaw lightly, testing it. Bruce remained still. Hands relaxed again. The heavy bag in the corner continued its slow swing. Frank inhaled deeply. Then again, his chest rising harder now. "Oh, you think that hurt me?" he asked. Bruce tilted his head. "It adjusted you." The crowd felt it. The shift. This wasn't a size advantage anymore. This was something else. Frank snarled, ego rising to the surface. He rushed forward again, wild now, desperate to reassert control. And Bruce did not retreat. He stepped forward to meet him. The distance collapsed. Mass collided with precision. And in that narrow space between impact and reaction, the fight changed. Frank rushed forward with everything he had left of certainty. No more testing, no more calculation, just force. His left hook came wide, driven by frustration. His right followed, less controlled, but heavier. Bruce did not move away. He moved in. The first hook glanced off Bruce's shoulder. The second never completed its arc. Bruce's forearm jammed inside, cutting the angle short. Their chests nearly touched, too close for Frank's power to breathe. For the first time that night, Frank felt cramped. His elbows had no space. His punches had no arc. Bruce's head tilted slightly forward, his forehead almost brushing Frank's chin. Inside range. Phone booth distance. Frank tried to wrap him up, to clinch, to lean all 240 pounds onto the smaller frame. Bruce shifted his hips, subtle, precise. His right foot slid behind Frank's lead leg. At the same time, his shoulder pressed lightly into Frank's sternum. It didn't look dramatic, but it altered balance. Frank's weight, once centered and stable, tilted forward. Bruce's left hand snapped down to Frank's wrist. Oh, not a grab, a control, then a short strike, 4 inches, upward, solar plexus. Frank's body reacted before his mind did. His breath vanished, not gone, stolen. A hollow gasp escaped him. The room heard it. Bruce stepped aside as Frank staggered, not falling, not yet, but something had shifted deep inside his core. Frank swung again, slower now, anger clouding precision. Bruce slipped to the outside and delivered a low kick to the thigh, not full force, just enough to weaken the base. Frank's leg buckled slightly. The crowd leaned forward. This was no longer amusing. It was instructional. Frank shook his head violently, as if clearing water from his ears. "You're dancing!" he barked. Bruce didn't answer. Frank charged again. This time with a straight bull rush, arms wide, trying to crush him. Bruce pivoted off the center line. Frank's mass carried him forward, and Bruce's foot hooked behind his ankle. It was almost invisible. A small sweep, timed perfectly. Frank's upper body kept moving while his base disappeared. 240 pounds hit the canvas with a sound like dropped furniture. The ring shook. The gym went dead silent. No one had expected that. Frank rolled immediately, pushing himself to one knee. Humiliation burned hotter than pain. Bruce stood 2 steps away, not advancing, not celebrating, waiting. Frank rose fully, his breathing now audible, heavy, measured in short bursts. Sweat dripped from his jaw, his gloves lifted again. Oh, but something in his eyes had changed. Before, there had been dismissal. Now, there was doubt. He circled slower, testing. Bruce remained light on his feet, balanced. Frank threw a jab. It was slower. Bruce parried easily. Frank tried a body hook. Bruce intercepted and answered with a sharp elbow to the inside of the arm. Frank winced. His right arm dropped slightly. Bruce stepped in and delivered another short punch to the liver. Compact. Explosive. Frank's body folded instinctively. He stepped back, instinctively protecting his side. He had fought men who hit hard, but this felt different. This wasn't blunt trauma. It was targeted. Surgical. Frank swung wildly, a desperate overhand. Bruce ducked beneath it and pivoted, now behind him. A quick shove between the shoulder blades. Frank stumbled forward again. The room no longer laughed. No one shouted advice. Men who had bet heavily on Frank felt something tighten in their stomachs. Frank turned, his chest rising sharply. "You can't hurt me," he growled. Bruce studied him calmly. "I don't need to." That landed deeper than a punch. Frank roared and lunged again. This time everything behind it. All pride, all frustration, all denial. A full haymaker, wide, committed. Bruce didn't retreat. He stepped into it, inside the arc, intercepting. His straight lead shot forward like a released arrow, clean, direct, landing square on Frank's jaw before the haymaker reached full extension. The impact snapped Frank's head back, not violently. Oh, but decisively. His balance broke. His feet tangled, and for the first time in his adult life, Frank felt small. He staggered backward 3 uneven steps, then dropped. Not unconscious, not asleep, just sitting, on the canvas, gloves resting on his thighs, chest heaving. Bruce stood still, hands relaxed again, no raised fists, no victory pose. Frank looked up at him. Confusion clouded his expression. He had been the bigger man his entire career, the heavier puncher, the physical certainty in every room. Now, none of it mattered. Someone near the ropes began counting, softly. 1. Frank planted a glove against the canvas, tried to rise. His legs trembled. 2. He made it halfway up. A flash of pain cut through his ribs. He collapsed back down. 3. The gym echoed with the rhythm of counting. Not official, but understood. Frank stared at the mat, breathing, trying to reconstruct what had happened. He had thrown harder. He had been heavier. He had been stronger, and none of it had touched him cleanly. 6. He tried once more. His knees refused, not from injury alone, but from something deeper. Certainty had left him. 8. Bruce remained motionless, watching, not with cruelty, with clarity. 9. Frank's shoulders slumped. The count reached 10. Silence. No bell rang. There was no bell. But everyone knew it was over. Frank remained seated, gloves resting on his thighs, breathing slowly now. Bruce took 1 step forward, then stopped, not looming, not dominating, just present. For the first time that night, the largest man in the room had never felt smaller, and the smallest man had never needed to prove it. No one cheered, not immediately. The silence was too thick for celebration. Frank remained seated on the canvas, gloves resting on his knees, eyes fixed somewhere just past Bruce's feet. His breathing had slowed, but the rhythm was different now, measured, humbled. Bruce stepped back. He did not raise his hands, did not nod to the crowd, did not circle the ring as if claiming territory. He simply waited until the counting stopped. A promoter in a dark jacket climbed into the ring, an envelope already in his hand. Cash, the kind exchanged in rooms without paperwork. He extended it toward Bruce with a small nod of respect. "You earned it." Bruce looked at the envelope, then at Frank. The big boxer still hadn't stood. His jaw tightened, not from pain, but from realization. Bruce took the envelope. For a moment the room assumed the story had ended. But Bruce turned. He walked 2 quiet steps and stopped in front of Frank. The crowd leaned in. Bruce held out the envelope. Frank looked up, confused. Bruce's voice was calm. "Strength is a gift," he said softly. "But understanding is a choice." He placed the envelope in Frank's glove, not as charity, as acknowledgement. Frank stared at it. He did not refuse. He did not thank him. He only nodded once. A silent acceptance of something larger than defeat. Bruce turned away. Stepped through the ropes. No dramatic exit. No final glare. Just movement, as if the moment had already passed inside his mind. The gym remained quiet long after he descended the wooden staircase. That night, the story spread. In boxing circles, in martial arts schools, in back rooms where men debated power and pride. Some exaggerated it, some denied it, some insisted the weight difference had been smaller, others claimed Bruce had knocked him unconscious. But one detail never changed. A 240-pound boxer had called him too small to fight, and walked away understanding that size alone had never been enough. Years later, when people asked what style he used, the answer was never simple. It wasn't about size. It wasn't about speed. It wasn't even about strength. It was about interception, timing, clarity. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not. Add what is uniquely your own. That night in a small San Francisco gym was not recorded in newspapers. There are no official scorecards, only memory, and the quiet truth that sometimes the smallest man in the room carries the greatest understanding. If you believe precision defeats power and discipline defeats ego, subscribe for more untold legends of Bruce Lee. And tell me in the comments, is size ever enough when timing is perfect?